What's going on, guys, and welcome back. Kang the Conqueror is out in Marvel Snap. Is he busted? Is he crap? We're going to talk about that today. It's that time again to rank all of the token shop available cards. We're going to put them in a tier list. Are they worth unlocking at 6K, 3K, 1K tokens, or just avoid altogether? And then lastly, we have a sneak peek at the new season pass in the month of March. It's all about Destroy. We're going to talk about the card coming out, as well as all the cards coming out that month on today's episode of the Snapchat. And as always, I am joined by Mr. Alex. How are we doing, man? Another good week of Marvel Snap, the last of February.
I'm doing great, Cozy, honestly, and I say it almost every single week, but like it's such a great time to be a Marvel Snap player. Kang just came out. Patch changes that were kind of wild last week have started to settle in a little bit. I mean, it's always a fantastic time to talk to you about Marvel Snap because there's always something going on, isn't there?
Yeah, man. It was, compared to the weeks before, it was a bit more tame of a week, but that was good because we let things settle, right? We got a full week of Sandman, a full week of the new Thanos and of the new Absorbing Man. And then, of course, Kang hits as well as Stature, which plenty of you guys, didn't even realize. And that's what we're going to be talking about today on Alex's side, actually, the card acquisition. Outside of that subject, Alex, what else are we going to be talking about on your side of the channel?
We're going to be talking about how card acquisition currently represents a bit of a problem in Marvel Snap. We're also going to be talking about free-to-play tips and just the general free-to-play experience that players are kind of going through right now. I mean, Cozy and I, we get a lot of feedback from players through all kind of stages of Marvel Snap, so we want to give some talk to that. And then finally, we're going to talk about the Marvel Snap meta in February. It's been a wild ride, and we're going to do a bit of a recap and perhaps look into what might be going on in the future.
Yeah, man. Well, that's great. We've got a lot to talk about, guys, and we're going to start with Kang the Conqueror. Now, I know a lot of you guys aren't going to get your hands on Kang, but he's definitely one of those important cards to know regardless if you unlock him or not, right? It would be like ignoring Galactus and his ability and not caring what he does, but you're going to face him a lot, and it's important to know A, what he does, and B, all the little intricacies that make up Kang. Now, is he any good is the name of the subject, and before we just hop into that, I think we have a lot more to talk about. He just came out. I only have a handful of games under my belt. I've seen some others play with him. Kind of initial impressions before we talk about any specifics, Alex, 1 through 10, like before anything.
My initial impression is that he's a solid 8, maybe
Okay.
an 8, maybe a 9, closer. Like he's on the upper side. He's not like a 10. I think that like Darkhawk, Zabu, Silver Surfer were probably approaching 9, 10. He's in that range in terms of like the power overall, like his capabilities to impact the game. But that's not what gives me reservations about him. It's not his actual impact as a card. It's everything else along the sides that kind of, trips me up a little bit. Cozy, what do you give him?
Yeah, I was going to say an 8 for now. Now, guys, if you don't know, Kang is going to be played, and he reverses everything that just happened. That includes snaps, that includes changed of locations, that includes cards getting destroyed. Whatever it might be is going to be reversed, and then you lose Kang, and then you guys both play the turn again, right? And so there was a lot of little things that people wanted to know how it worked, and we'll kind of hop into those. When it comes to Kang, my first initial impression is that he's going to seem underwhelming at first. I've had some creators, I actually asked a lot of different people what were their initial thoughts of Kang, and a lot of people said underwhelming, and they didn't think he was worth the tokens. And I thought that was interesting because to me, it reminds me of both Galactus and Thanos, which is kind of what he is. People kind of sold those cards out. When Galactus came out, people were kind of thinking he was not that good. I think I was one of them. I was like, he's okay. He can be situational. Thanos, as we know, we're looking at one that that wasn't a big Thanos fan. And I think the complicated cards initially don't have that very simple spark, right? It takes some time to find their decks, and it's going to take a little bit of time, but I have full confidence Kang is going to be probably busted insane, and he's going to have some fixing, at least in more areas than one. Right now, he already has an infinite bug loop, whether you want to call it a bug or whatever. And so we know some things are going to get touched up with Kang. But let's talk about the card itself, where we, see him fitting in. Our initial impression, Alex, whenever he first came out was, oh, you can put him in any deck, right? How do you feel at the moment for your first play testing and start off the conversation? Give me your initial thoughts.
Yeah, so I've had Kang since I guess the second rotation of my shop. I probably got about 100 games in with him, maybe a little more. So I've been practicing with him quite a bit, and I got to tell you, I thought the most natural fit for him was with Galactus, ironically. So,
Yep.
You have Galactus. Talk about big bads. You literally have Galactus, you have Null, you have Kang all in one deck list, and it works really well. And my initial impressions were like, it's an amazing card for that particular list because it really helps to like offset the risk of playing Galactus. Like I was playing Kang on turn 5 if I suspected that they knew I was playing Galactus and they were going to arrow me.
Okay, I love that you said the risk of playing Galactus is why you like Kang. And that is actually where I'm liking him the most. Not just Galactus, but I'm liking him in these combo decks, right? So when it comes to, let's say, Wong, all right, and playing Wong on 5 or 6, when you play him, you want to know if your opponent has the tools to, counter it, right? So what I was doing is playing Wong on 5, and then I play Kang on 6, and I see if he's even going to deal with my Wong at that point, right? And then if he doesn't, I know exactly what I can do, and I go that route with the combo. And it's kind of like Galactus in the sense of you bait out tech cards. I think he's fantastic for baiting out the tech cards, Alex. That's my favorite thing about him.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's pretty interesting because I actually did a video on it, kind of like a day one release on it. And in one of the clips I did where I kind of was trying to be showing an educational clip, I explained that literally what happened was I did the Galactus and I had Null and I actually played Kang first and he played Shang-Chi. And I was like, interesting. But I bet you because now he saw that I know he has Shang-Chi, he's actually not going to play it next turn. He's going to play something else. So I played Death and then I played Null. And sure enough, he didn't play the Shang-Chi. He tried to play a different combination, outpower me with Magneto or something. And so it was crazy how the player, it was like, oh no. He knows I have Shang-Chi. He knows what I'm going to do. My tech card's useless. And tried to do something fancier where he would have actually just won if he just kept to his original plan.
Yeah, it's interesting, right, Alex? I feel like Kang is... Okay, so when someone plays Daredevil, right, you kind of have to sit there and do you play your best play? Do you let him know what your strategy's doing? Do you play something like, I don't know, Arrow early, Professor X, just so you can kind of mess with that Daredevil effect? Kang is going to have somewhat of the same feel, I think, for people that don't have him. We'll talk about his interactions and why we don't like it here in a second. As far as decks, right, my initial impression, outside of just combo-rich decks and giving you a get-out-of-jail-free card, it's kind of like, is he worth a spot? That's always the thing. Is he truly worth a spot? And we're going to have to let time tell. I think he's going to be for a good chunk of decks. Not all of them. You have to build your deck around him still. But I think Control's another natural fit for Kang. I think we can see him work with Daredevil even more so. The turn 5, turn 6 Control seems a little crazy. People also forget that you don't get him all the time. And you're kind of subject to when you do get him. And so you build decks kind of, I don't know if you do this, but I build a deck just assuming I'm always going to have these cards, right? And then you fall victim to hand draw and how consistent it is. But overall, let's talk about Kang's effect, right, Alex? Good or bad for Marvel Snap? How do you feel about it in general?
So this is a really complex thing. I hope I articulate this correctly because as someone who played a couple 100 games or 100 games or so, I feel like Kang's effect is incredibly powerful, but perhaps for all the wrong reasons. And I feel like someone who hasn't played with the card wouldn't have recognized this, and I did today. So the problem with Kang is that he gives you free cubes. Let me explain how this works.
Yes.
So essentially, when you play Kang, you're able to snap. And that snap has no repercussion. Even if you're wildly losing, it doesn't matter. The name of the game when you try to get to infinite is the idea of just climbing slowly. You're not going to get many 8 cube games. You're barely going to get 4 cube games. It's probably going to be a lot of 1, 2, potentially 4 cube games if they go, right? The thing about Kang is that when you play Kang, whether it be turn 5 or 6 and you snap, that's a risk-free snap for you. You have no disadvantage. However, your opponent will feel that stress. And if they retreat, that turn doesn't reset. They just gave up that cube. However, if they call your bluff, even if they snap back, it doesn't mean anything to you. And so you're able to play this bluffing game with Kang where you couldn't play it anywhere else. And it's wild. It's wild, its impact, because you can force and bait retreats completely risk-free. And I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up first. Let's start with this. I know we want to talk. It's a new card, guys, and it's fun. It's a big bad. Kang is epic in Marvel, and we want to talk about the fun ways to use them. But let's first talk about the concerns, and that was my top concern. There's a reason why, let's say in battle mode, they kind of constrain you being able to just snap all the time if you even don't have, the full health. And there's no risk to that, right? And so they don't give you that ability. They absolutely, in my opinion, need to fix his adjustment of snapping. It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't even need to be a part of the match, right? That's above what's happening. That nothing should get touched up there, and it's very awkward that made it through testing because it kind of hurts the integrity of what you've gotten used to in the game in general. And I don't like it, Alex. Now, I got Kang right before filming this. I've gotten maybe 50 games under my belt. Alex, I've had 10 plus turn 5 retreats just by snapping, and it doesn't feel good. Now, you can't say people get used to it, because it's all a part of the strategy in Marvel Snap. I would say, you know, when the game came out, people said bluffing was a terrible strategy, and for the most part, it was. But the fact that that's now being able to be included in there, and you just don't know if that player has Kang, or they have a good play, or, you know, you just get the free cubes, I don't like it. I do think they need to change the snapping mentality, Alex. But on top of that, Kang allows you to see RNG outcomes. So what do we mean by that? You can play Lockjaw tokens like Wasp and maybe the Stones if you have Quinjet out, and Kang all in the same turn. And whatever comes out of Lockjaw is always going to come out of Lockjaw. If you play Agent Coulson, whatever you get from Agent Coulson will always be the same cards. Location changes with things like Reality Stone will always be the same. I don't think that needs to be the case. I think that RNG needs to always reset.
I think it's a really good point, and I think that, like, from a conceptual standpoint, the idea that, like, you know, you have a timeline that gets reset by Kang. Yeah. You can have an alternate timeline. Go down another path. There could be other RNG. I mean, the lore lines up there, so I think there's no problem. But you do bring up a good point. Something I want to go back to, and it kind of came up to my mind while you were talking about the snapping. And this game and the development team has really focused on, like, defending the integrity of the snap, right? It's one of the reasons why we don't have ranked floors, for instance, until infinite. It's one of the reasons why, as you mentioned in battle mode, you can't snap past your cubes, which makes perfect sense. So, like, the defense of the snap mechanic and the integrity of the snap has been a major focal point. And so with Kang, I feel like that integrity has been compromised slightly because of all the reasons we've discussed. So this is like a card that is not just like a good card, but it kind of is like a controversial card in the sense like it completely changes the manner by which it plays. And like Daredevil, it sits on the board for multiple turns. You know Daredevil's coming, but Kang, you never can anticipate. You never know when it's coming. And I actually think that the fact that it disappears from the board is a benefit because it leaves you more space. Like, if it just stayed and occupied space on the board, it would have been an annoyance.
I like the idea of the card existing. I think there is some fun to it. There needs to be a little bit of tweaking. In fact, guys, from what I have witnessed, a lot of what you find out from Kang, for the most part, a good player should know anyway. I mean, I'm not saying that it's going to tell you everything, but a lot of the times I'm like, yep, there it is. Sure, he's playing that Red Skull. Shocker, right? Like, a lot of the times that happens. I think when it comes to the tech card baiting and RNG outcomes and stuff, that's where his better use is. I plan on trying to form a deck with Kang and like the Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Like, let's see where they play and if they're doing Cosmo and if it makes sense just to dump a lot of them all in the next turn and get that max benefit, or Gamora, or one of those cards that are reactionary that you don't necessarily want to use on a Daredevil turn, or you maybe want to do it on turn 6 or opposed to Daredevil. That's where I think Kang is going to have some unique deck building. And then outside of that, he should fit into the majority. But yeah, it's interesting because he's making great decks already better, and that never feels good either. Like the RNG outcome thing, right? What comes to mind? Lockjaw, the Stones, the Reality Stone, Quinjet, so you can do it. Put the high power cards in there, throw them on in, and see what comes out, right? But altogether, I think Kang is going to settle around Galactus territory of like, it's an annoyance, it's good, it can be beat, and the player with the card will definitely not always win, and we just have to add it to our arsenal. I think anytime a new card comes out, Alex, it feels crazy, like Null, and then it kind of settles down.
One thing I'll mention, Cozy, is that a lot more people have Kang than people probably realize, because as a permanent Series 5 card, we now know that like it's not going to be dropping from 6,000 tokens. So the result of that is like you can kind of buy it with confidence, because I don't know about you, but the idea of like me spending 6,000 tokens on Darkhawk and a week later it dropping down to 3,000, that felt terrible to me.
Yeah.
Knowing that I can invest my 6K in Kang and it's just going to be 6K for the foreseeable future gives me the confidence to spend those tokens. I think a lot of people felt that way. And so I feel like it's out there, and I hope that we kind of resolve some of these issues, and I hope that, like, I think the things we brought up are extremely valid, and there actually is a 100% win rate strategy right now with Kang. What you do is you Iron Fist him in a Cosmo, and then you just Zole it until your opponent retreats. 100% win rate strategy. You heard it here first.
Yeah, well, it's the infinite loop glitch, but I'll say this. I think it's a big clickbait. It's hard to pull off. It's not. I think I watched my buddy Reed just try it for like an hour plus to try to get it to work, and it's like, you know, it shouldn't exist. We should not have infinite combos. And there's a lot of things that you guys might be shocked to hear. You can actually have two Kangs. Absorbing Man does not work with Kang. Let's get that out of the way now, because your Kang doesn't exist anymore. If you Doc out a Kang, that's going to work. You can Lockjaw. All those things that you think would happen with Kang does happen. I think the only difference is I think you can White Queen a Kang, and only Kangs that were played or revealed are the ones that go away. So it is possible to have multiple And cited note is he cannot be generated by any card. So Agent Coulson cannot produce him as a 5-drop. I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he's not apparently he's not being able to be produced. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that is from what I've heard. But anyway, so yeah, Kang is going to be interesting. We're definitely going to be talking about him more as far as if he's worth it. We're having a token shop tier list here next, so we'll discuss that. Overall, Alex, though, I think 8 feels good for both of us, and you know, he just came out, so we're gonna have to give our second round of opinions, right, on how he does. Now, Alex, we're going to talk about the token shop for pools 4 and 5. We did this about a month and a half ago. We ranked all of them, right? Would you buy them at 6K, 3K, wait till they're 1K, they're a decent cash unlock, or just no, right? They're not good at all. So we're going to look at all of the cards that are currently in there, and Alex and I are going to rank them all together. For the audio listeners, we'll read it out. Alex, we're going to start with our first card here, and we've got Black Panther. Now, Black Panther, we don't have to worry about it being 6,000 tokens. He's only 3,000 at the moment. Where would you be placing Black Panther?
My initial impression would be to wait until pool 3.
Okay. Yeah, so I have Black Panther around the 2. I think, guys, it's important to know in general, for a lot of these, if you enjoy the archetype, if you're big on reveal, you love playing Arnim Zola, some have a catch-22, right? Obviously, we're going to talk about that with some of these today. We're going to try to go for the majority of you guys, and if they're going to significantly improve your decks or your play is, I think, what we're going to look at the most, Alex. For Black Panther, you could put him here if you're a big on-reveal guy, and that's kind of the cards you've invested in. I think, you know, if you're going all out, you can definitely use them. Still very overpowered with a combo that cannot be stopped. Let's go to the next one, Alex, and tell me about Darkhawk, who is currently ranked 3,000. Is he worth it at the 3,000?
Darkhawk is so tricky because with the nerf to Zabu and with the nerf to Darkhawk itself, the card has definitely fallen off in power, but it's still a very good 4-drop. Like in terms of just raw, like not damage output, but in terms of raw energy output, it's still one of the highest 4-drops that you can get. So at 3,000 tokens, I think it's pretty fair, all things considered, but he does require other pieces, right? So he's going to require that you have Rock Slide. He's going to require that you have Black Widow. So if you don't have those components of the deck, then perhaps you consider waiting until pool 3 or waiting until you get those components. But at 3,000 tokens, I feel like it's pretty fair for a very high impact 4-drop.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. And just in general, with this entire tier list, we've said this before, you know, try to be mostly pool 3 complete for the majority of these, but a lot have complementary cards, right? Like, great point. Rock Slide, you're going to want him. You don't have to have Black Widow. I would say Rock Slide is definitely the kind of the bar. If you have Zabu, it's just going to build to that as well. If you have Zabu, actually, I would say he's an easy 3,000 token unlock, in my opinion. If you're sick of Thanos, he's very good against Thanos. Obviously, those deck sizes are absolutely huge. And if you play Zabu, you can still do a big discount. I like him as a complement to Devil Dinosaur decks. You don't need a lot around him outside of a Rock Slide. Maybe the Zabu in there as well. I would say he's probably worth it at 3,000 tokens, having one of the best decks in the game currently in Snap. How about Dazzler? And I know you don't have Dazzler, but from what you've seen, initial impressions, what do you think of Dazzle?
It's hard for me to make a really detailed assumption on Dazzler because, as you said, I have not had the chance to play Dazzler. But from what I understand and from what I've seen, I think you wait until pool 3. I wouldn't be willing to pay 6,000. I don't think I'd be willing to pay 3,000 either, unless we get a major component for Zoo in an upcoming release or an upcoming battle pass. For now, I would lean towards wait till pool 3, but Cozy, I know you've played Dazzler, so I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, because if you think it's worth 3,000 tokens, I'm up for being sold.
No, so Dazzler is not, no, I don't think even remotely. The problem is Dazzler is fun. She works out well. Perfect pairing with Omega Red. The issue with Dazzler is I often find other cards that I would include over her, right? If you're big on the Patriot deck, she does work. If you like Zoo and Thanos and you have those cards already, she honestly pairs up pretty nicely. It just doesn't line up all of the time, and because you're waiting on certain things to happen and really fill up that board, and right now Killmonger's so hot because of the meta, she doesn't feel great in this current meta. In fact, I think she could even use a small buff. I do like her. Right now, I'm winning with her, but it's not because of her ability. It's because people just don't expect her, right? Like, that's why I'm winning. People just don't expect the Omega Red play, and how good does that make a card? I don't know, right? That's kind of up to the player. So I would say probably a cash unlock was good. If you're big on Patriot Zoo, you could consider. Next one up, and this is a big one. This is our first big bad, Alex. Galactus. Now, Galactus is not dropping. Do you unlock Galactus? When should you unlock Galactus? Who should unlock Galactus, Alex?
It's a very interesting point that you bring up. I mean, for now, we know that it's not dropping in series. It's going to be remaining in Series 5. That could change, right? But one thing that I will say is I kind of had a bit of a different kind of epiphany with regards to Galactus, King, and Thanos, of course, is that because they're going to be always in Series 5, if you have the tokens, it feels like a safer investment because, yes, it's a lot of tokens. Don't get me wrong. There are a ton of tokens. But at least you know that, like, they're not going down and that you have a very interesting kind of like unique card that will be playable, right? Like Galactus has its own niche. Thanos has its own niche. So like these cards, you can't get experiences like that anywhere else in the game right now. So it really becomes like a personal choice. Do you want that playstyle? Do you want that archetype? And I guess the fact that it's not dropping, it gives you a little bit of, it protects from that buyer's remorse of being like, well, I just got ripped off. You know what I mean, Cozy?
You brought up a good point, and I think this is my advice for most people. Even if they're an early pool 3, watch gameplay, discover if you like them, and if you do, and you're going to go all in and you truly want to play it a ton, I think you get them. The deck's going to take you far. You can only get a couple of cards to complement them, and you've got yourself a very high-performing deck with not loads of pool 3 cards. It's kind of the same for Thanos, right? With Kang, we'll get to him, but you want to see decks, you know, kind of get out there in the meta first. If you're all in on him, and yes, he's going to be there forever at that token rate, I think it's a fine pull, right? I think it's okay. I think it's definitely, you put him against 6 pool 3 drops, it's a bit concerning. But if you want to play Galactus and that's all you want to do, you do have a high-performing deck, right? So I think Galactus would be worth it. I would say typically have at least 1 to 2 pool 3 decks created, maybe like 5 of the top 20 cards unlocked, and you know, you can look at list around YouTube for that. But you know, have your Mystiques, have those cards unlocked, and then get Galactus. I think he's great for that.
You're right. One thing I will mention, and like this is a little crazy, you know, people are gonna get mad at me. They're like, Alex, how dare you ask for this? But I would almost like to see if there was a Series 6 and that Galactus, Thanos, and Kang were there. And then Series 5 was all the new releases. The reason why I bring this up is because I would like it if like there was a Series 6 where you're guaranteed a drop of one of these 3 big bads like once every, say, like 4,000 collection level or whatever the wild number is going to be anyways. Because one of the things that I think is tricky for players is that yes, they're always going to be pool 5, but they're constantly releasing cards into pool 5. And so like there's constant dilution, decreasing the chance that you actually ever pull Galactus, Thanos, or Kang. So if they were in their own category where you know you're going to lock them eventually, it would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, I love that you said that. On your side, on card acquisition, my number one point is going to be have them stay in pool 5. Everything else is pool 4. So kind of the same thing, right? Like they need to be in their own tier. 100% agree. I'm fine with other things being introduced as long as we know it and that's where they are. And they're the only ones in it. Because then you compare this guy to Dazzler and you're like, of course you would get, you know, Galactus over Dazzler. So it's very weird. We're going to talk about that a ton. Lots of thoughts on that. But overall, I think Galactus is worth it as long as you know you like him. Go check out the guides on him and see if he's a play style that you want to go after. Next up, we have Ghost, Alex, and I don't think you've got Ghost, right?
No, I had Ghost pin going into the New York tournament thinking I was going to use it, and I ultimately decided not to invest the tokens in it. I could see Ghost being worth 3,000 in my personal opinion. At 6,000, like I wrestle with that. But it definitely is an incredible effect, and I think it's worth like noting that like that could be a definite deck build around. Like there are so many cards that benefit from Ghost, specifically the tech ones, right? So I think it's a pretty interesting card, but I don't know if it's worth 6K.
So anytime, Alex, that you have a card that is complicated, right? I think people are kind of just waiting to see what happens with Ghost. Now, I have played with Ghost. I haven't upgraded, actually, kind of like the gray board until I go all the way. Ghost is interesting. And it's a card that is going to need a little bit more time for people to continue to find it. I think Control's a natural place for it. I think there are some great benefits with having your cards always reveal last, especially with Kang. There's some good kind of craziness that you can pull off with Ghost. However, do I think it's worth it at 6K? Right now, no. If we knew the decks already, maybe. 3,000 tokens, if they're discovered by then, I think it's okay. Not played a lot. I will say it's nice to have another 1-drop in the Spectrum build and stuff that you can kind of work with. Having an ongoing effect is never bad. Currently, it's hard for me to even say Ghost should be at the 3,000 because I just don't know the full potential yet. I'll lean on the side of I like her effect. I think it's untapped because of how rare the card is at the moment. So yeah, worth 3,000 feels good to me, Alex. Our next card is Null, Alex. Mr. Null. Give me your initial impressions. What tier?
I think Null is definitely worth it at 3,000. This is a card that's incredibly niche, yes, but it does activate decks around the destroy mechanic to like the nth degree. Like this is the destroy card. It actually works wonderfully with Kang, like the cards we talked about prior. But like this is like the kind of like the big bad of a specific archetype. Like if you play destroy, this card is worth 20,000 tokens, right? Like it's that good in terms of that. And like look at this variant too. Oh my god,
spicy.
What a variant. But the idea here is that, like, I do think that Null is extremely good for that particular archetype. But if you're not a Destroy player, if you don't have Galactus yet, and you don't have those tools, then perhaps you wait a little longer. But in terms of the individual card, it is good.
Yeah, shout out to Kim Jacinto. Kind of my full feelings of Darkhawk. It's all in the same blend, right? If you play that style of deck, you couldn't add a better weapon to the arsenal, right? If you play Destroy, he is the ultimate kind of perfect tool to work. I will say this about Null, too. The next season pass, which we're going to talk about next, Null is going to be a great counter because we already knew when MODOK came out, what did you see, man? Discard all over the place, right? Null is going to be able to not only utilize the next season pass, but also counter it. So I think he's going to be a huge card. I just released a whole video because everybody only puts Null with Galactus, and I think he had so much more use outside of that. So if you want to look at a new blend of Destroy deck where you're kind of hunting the opponent and hunting your own cards, it's a lot of fun. It's not perfect, but I think it will, over time, become a new kind of archetype in a way. But yeah, Null to me, no question about it. If you're a Destroy fan, easy clap, worth it. If you're not, still pretty dang good card, and I would put him well above the rest. Now, Alex, you've gone, I wouldn't say full circle with M'Baku, but the love has grown. Where are you putting M'Baku on the list? He is still not pool 3. I think it's hilariously comical.
Yeah, I can't believe that they didn't drop him down to pool 3. I mean, they must have known something the rest of us didn't, because M'Baku comes out part of a tournament winning deck. You know what? I actually ended up experimenting with M'Baku, and you know what I came to the realization of, Cozy?
He's trash.
He's still absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Put him in no. Keep him in no. He sucks. I don't care. That tournament win, okay, bless it, but you know what? No, M'Baku's garbage. I tried to play him. I couldn't do it. It just felt bad the whole time. Nah, M'Baku's trash tier. You know what? Just change the note to M'Baku tier, and we're back at it like we were last time.
It is now back to the M'Baku tier as it should be. M'Baku, talk about like the problem with Dazzler, right? It's like, do I use this card and like, what is he going to take over? Index? Really nobody, right? Cerebro 2, sure. But there's still much better options. I think there's hype on him because it's fun to love. Just like any game, it's fun to love the worst cards in the game, right? Like, typically, and he's going to be right up there with it. Have you been blessed by Shamu?
I have. I did pull Shamu, and I got to tell you, it was a dark moment, but it's okay. I tried to make him work. I pulled him roughly around the Plunder Isle featured location. I was like, hey,
okay,
this is blessed. He still sucked.
Yeah, he did work in Plunder Castle for sure. He looks okay on paper, and then you play him, and you're like, man, this is terrible. And it's not even because of the green goblins or what your opponent can play. There are so many locations that screw you with this guy, too. There are so many locations that screw you. And he works best in, like, maybe a Destroyer kind of Spectrum ongoing build. Now with Sandman, a little bit better. But if Namor got a buff, I think our guy Orca here should as well. SeaWorld's not doing good as a company, and I think Orca is also demonstrating that. I would put Orca, sadly, in the probably maybe what decent cash unlock. If you get him in the cash, it's like okay. You put him in the M'Baku. You're gonna put him in the M'Baku? Yeah.
This card feels unplayable.
Well, it can't be the M'Baku tier. Okay, all right, we're gonna move forward, guys. We're gonna have our another breaking update, guys. We did change it to the Orca and M'Baku tier now to resemble correctly. It's our bottom tier. Moving forward, we have Sauron, currently ranked at 6,000 tokens. We know he's in the top decks in Marvel Snap, and I think this might be one of the most difficult cards to judge because people see this card really high ranked, and they don't know should you unlock them. Now, Alex, I'll say this. I don't own only a couple cards in this game. I think 2. And he is one of the 2 that I do not own. I could buy him if I wanted to. And I keep passing him. I made the decision to pass him in January. And I'm not going to get him now. I got to wait at least until he drops. Where would you rank Sauron initial impressions?
So I don't have Sauron either, and I've passed him just like you did because I'm like, you know what? I like having him on turn one. I ain't mad. So I've decided that I didn't need him. But the honest truth is that yes, there are some great archetypes that utilize him, specifically the Shuri-based archetypes. However, I do think that the Shuri list work just fine without it. So I think that Sauron is like kind of unnecessary. Like if you have Shuri and you're playing Shuri Red Skull style lists, you don't need him. You really just don't need him. Yes, it's a cool splash of flavor in there, but like you really don't need him. So I would suggest he's worth 3,000 tokens because I would be uncomfortable spending 6,000 knowing that like you really don't gain that much of a win rate just for making that investment. It is a different deck, but it's a similar archetype.
So it's interesting, right? Because it's kind of like Null. If you had Galactus, Null was worth it at 6k. If you're a Destroy fan, he's definitely worth it at 3k. Sauron, if you are a die-hard, all you play is Shuri and Red Skull decks, get Sauron, and that's it. Fine. That's fine. Get him when you want to. I would say 3,000 for that feel. He's definitely top tier level. He's very solid. However, he is easily one of the most limiting cards that we have currently. Like, Null can be used to a much wider extent. In fact, every card we've talked about can as well. Next up, we've got Sentry. Oh, Sentry. And I'll say this. Sentry is getting better. He's not great, Alex. All right, hold on. He's not great. And I still don't elect to put him in the decks that I could put him in with the Viper plays and what have you. But simply put, the opponent could just easily destroy this if it goes to their side. Yes, you can Valkyrie it, but again, you're looking for these interactions that are awkward. The nerf to Zabu both helped and hurt him. I would say more on the hurt side because now he's going to be a Permanent 3. You can play him and Viper both on turn 5, which is better than playing, obviously, a Hobgoblin. But everything needs to line up still, and that's my biggest issue with the card, Alex.
This card is not even a decent unlock. Like, I don't know what to do with this card because it's at the point where it's like, okay, we're missing something here. Like, there has to be another combo piece. As you said, everyone goes back to the Viper play. It doesn't exist. Like, in my personal opinion, if M'Baku is at an outhouse, right, he's going on top of Sentry. Like, that's how bad this card is. Like, I cannot stress how frustrating it would be right now. Like, my major fear is unlocking Sentry in a cache right now, because if I have to unlock Sentry, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Yeah, we're going back to no. This is just back to the no, guys. Audio listeners, we have switched now 3 times. Sentry is going to be at the bottom. I don't even know if you can get super excited about him being a cache unlock, man. He's a frustrating card. He's a weird card that I don't put in a lot of decks. Can you make him work? Sure. I think you can make every card of the game work in its own kind of shell. Shadow King is next up, and I would say we've got a card that could contend with Sentry, or at least that's what the majority of people feel. And I gotta say, you ready for the most glorious variant you've ever seen in your life? I already apologize to our audio listeners. Check out this absolute beauty. I know. Jealousy? Is jealousy coming to mind, Alex?
Yeah, I'm jealous.
It's okay.
I'm jealous that you get to, oh man, I'd rather stick a fork in my eye.
Hey, look at him. He's a man of class. All right. Okay. That's
he looks
all.
like a fake kingpin.
It's all he's got going for him. It really is his good dressing. And the thing about it, what I love about this pixel variant is the coolest thing about Shadow King is the little monster behind him. Hey, guess what? You can't even see him. We just get this drip going on. Looks straight out of Aladdin. Love it. So Shadow King is a card that I think has been written off a bit too early. And I do think there's going to be places that you can play him. And let me go ahead and talk about it. So I think you can put him in decks where you have Valkyrie, obviously, where you have Luke Cage and it affects your own lane. You can put him in toxic decks. And if you don't pull Luke Cage, you can protect one of your lanes back to normal. Maybe a lane they don't happen to have cards in. The fact that he affects both lanes is very tough. But with the right cards and in a control deck, I might say he's an okay cache unlock, but time will tell. At the moment, he's probably a no for me, Alex, but I think he does have future. And one of the things I'm excited about with hopefully making new card releases more exciting is that we get more people getting these cards to test this stuff, right? It can't be up to all 17 people with Shadow King, and we know that because he's the second lowest played card in Marvel Snap. Moving forward, we have Shayna, the She-Devil. And Alex, I'm going to be quick on this. I'm going to say she's a decent cache unlock. I maybe pull 3 if you're a big Zoo fan. Probably right up there with Dazzler if you're a big Zoo fan. Does this feel about right, or do we like this?
Shane is really interesting because when I look at the card, I feel like I can definitely make it work. But at the same time, you're absolutely correct when you say that, one drops do have a lot of RNG built in. Getting Titania at the wrong time and popping her off on the wrong side, it can be detrimental to your game, right? Ebony Maw not being able to play into that lane can be crazy too. So like she's a very interesting card, but you're right. You can't really build a deck solely around her. So I would say probably wait till pool 3, maybe a decent cash unlock. If I unlock her in a cash, I'm actually pretty happy because I do want to experiment. I think it's a really cool card. But yeah, the value is a little suspect.
So the problem with Shayna, I think last time we ranked, we were like, we don't know the possibility of Shayna. We're starting to see it a bit more. Like, this makes me want to put Dazzler down lower, but the thing between them is I can reliably set up Dazzler a bit easier than with Shayna. Shayna has more RNG elements. Dazzler could be put down, I think, but I'm going to keep it this. She kind of floats. We're going to have her down in the decent cash unlock. As we move on to our next card, Sherry. Let's not spend a lot of time here, Alex. People know by now, one of the best cards in the game. If it gets nerfed to a 4-0, hey, guess what, guys? Still one of the best cards. So 3,000. Any comments, Alex?
No, I think you're right. The only risk here is, does it get nerfed? But either way, they can nerf its power, but they won't nerf its identity. It's going to be an incredibly powerful effect no matter what. So I think that 3,000 tokens, you're probably getting a very good card for a very long time.
Alex, I honestly think it could be a -1 like Mr. Negative, and I'm still okay with like the power potential. You wouldn't be able to use it as much as a plug and play, and I think it would take away the fun pieces of her, but still just completely cracked in the way she works. All right, next up, guys, we have Silver Surfer, and he's currently worth 3,000 tokens. Alex, would you buy the Surfer if you've got the right cards around it? What do you think? I think this is one of the harder ones today.
Yeah, definitely it's a little more challenging, but what I will say is now that the Sandman meta has slowly started to dissipate a little bit, people are like experimenting with Sandman, they get it. I think that Silver Surfer is going to have a chance to kind of make a bit of a comeback here. I think that it's still a viable card. I think it's combo pieces. Like if you have Brood, for instance, and you have Maximus and other pool 3 kind of major synergistic cards, I think it's definitely worth it. I do like the Silver Surfer archetype. I always have. I still have a deck list that I turn to for Silver Surfer. And the only major concern is Leech. I think Leech is probably a bigger factor than Sandman right now because Leech will obviously destroy your turn 6 play. But honestly, I think Silver Surfer's in a really interesting spot, especially since it kind of like fell out of the meta a little bit. It's a little more surprising, but they might know what you're doing when you drop Sarah. But I like the card. I think it's worth 3,000.
For sure. It completely blew me away that the win rate of a Sarah Surfer deck is still well over 55%. And I'm like, people just write things off right after the nerf, like Zabu too, and both these cards still work. That also means that they were just crazy beforehand. Surfer works more now because now it's surprising that he's there, right? Any card, when you see Brood back in the January month and December, like you knew what was going to happen, you were treated. Now it's better because of the surprise factor, and I think that's what really adds to a lot of these cards. It's a bit odd. It depends on your play. Because he's plug and playable, I like him at 3,000 tokens, depending on, I would say, 50% of pool 3 completed. It feels good to me. Next up, we have Stature. Alex, I did unlock Stature, and I've got to tell you, she's insane. She's actually a very good card because it feels like a Maximus. It's just good value across the board. We're 6,000. No, it's not quite there. Like, Shuri, I would have bought in at that full rate. This really needs to be impactful. I mean, what do you think of Stature on your initial impressions? But I'll kind of talk about my experience with her so far.
So I actually had her pinned for the longest time. This is a card I wanted from the start. We bought the same Black Bull variant. We did. We bought the same Black Bull variant. We are ready, man. We are ready to play Stature. And then what happened was Kang came out, and I was like, I got to unpin Stature. I wasn't that committed to it yet because I wanted to get Kang first. And then I kind of wish I just bought it because I do love the card. I do love the effect. I want a reason to play Black Bull. I think it just comes down to like you want a reason to play Black Bull, right?
Oh,
is that just kind of what it comes down to?
It's a good chunk of it, right? Like I would say people wanted to play Zero decks back when the game came out just to play Red Skull. Like it's one of those, like it's just a cool card to play, you know? Stature, first of all, Alex, yeah, you said this was the card you were going to buy. I think when we did talk about all the cards coming out.
I did.
Stature is awesome. I'm not gonna lie. She feels really good because even if you don't get her discount, 5-7, it's like, all right, you have something to play, I guess, and it's not great. But at the same time, you just don't realize how many games truly you do get a discard. Now, Moon Knight does work a lot better than I thought. I like to pair her up with Moon Knight and also Ghost Rider just in case things do go wrong. But that gives you two, a 50% chance about to be able to get one of them and get Stature down. She is always great value. And I've got to say, man, Black Bolt, Wong Black Bolt, or just Black Bolt, and then Shuri Stature on 6. is only 5 energy, and it's just mind-blowing that you can do that, followed by Titania. And you're looking at a good play for a lot of value, right? So I do like Stature a lot. Definitely think a 3,000 token unlock. If you play certain types of decks that could utilize Stature, it's always good to add more value to your collection. Value cards, good cards, and I put it on the list. Super Scroll. Oh, man. I'm going to put Super Scroll at a decent unlock. I think he gets a lot of crap, but I don't think he's as bad as people say.
I spent 6,000 on him, and that is one of the most regrettable purchases of my Marvel Snap career. Definitely playable, though. Like, surprisingly playable. I think people do sleep on Super Scroll a little bit.
Yeah, so, again, it's always where the meta is, and if Ongoing is out there, it's great. But it's like you can instantly just match a Null on Galactus if you're playing a lot of Patriot decks more often. I do think the card does work. There's some weird things on, you know, the consistency of it, but it's a good tech option. I think he's definitely better than Shadow King. Okay, guys, we need to take a hot minute before we get to this next one. We have Thanos. Alex spent the better part of, I want to say, a full 2 months taking a big ol' Marvel Snap dump on Papa Thanos. I'm going to go ahead and just give you the floor, Alex, before I open up.
I hated on Thanos so much. I took so much anger out on Thanos. Every frustration I experienced in my personal life, I took out on Thanos. Thanos literally took the brunt of all my anger for the last several months. And Cozy, you warned me. You said, Alex, there's going to come a day where you're going to turn to Thanos. You're going to look him in the eye. And you're going to say, it's your time. It's your time to carry me. And that's exactly what I did. And Cozy, you know what I did with Thanos?
What did you do?
I got to Infinite with Thanos. Exclusively playing Thanos. And that should surprise nobody because Thanos is incredible. And there was some irony. There was some irony when I hit rank 101 and my Thanos got the boosters, and I looked at myself in my reflection of OBS, and I thought to myself, Cozy is just in spirit saying, I told you so. I told you so. Because you're right, man. Thanos is God tier. He's worth 6,000. I owe this man so much. What a card.
It's better than the story arc of Anakin Skywalker, guys. The man just turned evil against him. And I don't even want to be right. I'm not looking to be right. I will say I got blasted. I wanted to make a graphic with all the crap I got for ranking Thanos so high for a while. And this was before the 11 buff. He was still good before that. I always pinned him as one of the biggest brain cards in Marvel Snap. He still is. And I still think this Lockjaw deck isn't even close to the best deck we'll see with him. It is an interesting one to talk about. And I get a lot of people asking if I should get Thanos or what should I do. I don't think he's going to get nerfed. I truly don't. I think the 11 power is here to stay, at least for a good while being. I think Thanos, I still stand by it. Even before the buff, I said this, is one of the better unlocks that you can have. Now, I would say if we're going on a pool 3 kind of guesstimation, you know, I would put him around the 50% mark. He's a lot less... He needs more love than Galactus. Galactus, you can kind of pull off his decks with very few other cards that you need selects of. Thanos has kind of a widespread, but he works with like ongoing list, dude. From all pool 1, pool 2 for the most part. He works with very cheap cards, and then now he's awesome for Jubilee and Lockjaw. Thanos, to me, if you see him in the shop, I would pin him personally. Absolutely crazy. Next up, we have Valkyrie, and she's an interesting one, I think, for sure. Wait for pool 3, worth it at 3,000 tokens. That's where she currently is at. Where do you place Valkyrie?
So Valkyrie was actually in my Thanos list. I think it's worth 3,000 tokens for sure. I think Valkyrie is way better than Shadow King. So Valkyrie's one of those cards where at first glance, you're like, can I even really use this? Yes, you can. This card is good. Specifically with Thanos because of the Soul Stone. If you play Soul Stone then Valkyrie on turn 6, you basically give the Soul Stone the additional power, but also drop the entire floor to 3, while the Soul Stone drops the entire side by 1, giving you that lane. So like Valkyrie, it counters Shuri. It does an amazing job. It does not counter like Devil Dinosaur, like ongoing effects, like even Null, for instance. But I do like Valkyrie. I found Valkyrie to be a very good card. And I was continuously impressed with the way that it really like surprised opponents. It also acts as a secondary Shang-Chi, right? So like it is a really good card, and I stand by it. I think it's worth 3,000.
She's a cube winner, I think is the best way to say it. And I had her on day 1, guys. I said as well, I think Valkyrie was one of my favorites too. Just one that I think is going to be underutilized. The surprise factor is absolutely huge. It's going to be fun to see her in pool 3 and like how common she is. With Valkyrie, let me play a game here with you. Silver Surfer or Valkyrie?
I would take Silver Surfer over Valkyrie.
Null.
I would take Null over... I would take I'd still take Null over Valkyrie.
That's more of a
maybe.
preference
If
one.
I have Galactus, it's easy. But
that's
Null
a
probably over Valkyrie.
Darkhawk?
I'm not sure, man. That's tight. I think Darkhawk's probably better than Valkyrie.
Okay, good enough. I like it. Valkyrie's interesting, guys. I think she's worth 3,000, but she is much more have your pool 3 tight, right? Have it more unlocked and maybe have Thanos if you plan on doing that route as well. But you can use her in a lane lockdown deck that I enjoy a ton. All right, we've got a few more cards. We have Zabu, and Zabu right now is introduced into the store. Where would you put Zabu? Do you think he's worth at the 3,000 mark? Do you think he's worth at pool 3? I feel like he's a very much like Silver Surfer to me. I think he's still a great card.
I agree with you. I think he's really good. I think that obviously the nerf, I think it hit him harder than people maybe gave it credit for at first. Like, I think he still works with negative, and obviously he's still a good card. I think Silver Surfer is in better shape than Zabu is. I think waiting for 3,000 tokens is appropriate.
I wish this was how we always had Zabu, man, because I love it. I think he feels great. He feels unique, and that's what we want from cards. And I feel like he does feel unique in the sense of what he does. I think 4-cost cards still have a lot of place in the game, and so it is fun to be able to play 2 on turn 6. And again, any cost reduction is solid. I think 3,000 tokens, if, again, you want to build a deck and you have it in mind. If he's in your shop and you're not, you could be arsed, as they say, don't worry about it. Can't be arsed, whatever. All right, next up we have Atuma, and Atuma surprised me that he did not drop in the most recent pool series. Definitely will be the next candidate up. And I continue to find ways to utilize him. I would say he's probably worth a pool 3 unlock for me.
Yeah, I mean, he's a decent cash unlock as well. But yeah, I would not buy him at this point for 3,000. I think you get it perfectly. He's going to be dropping. He'll be the next round of pool 3 cards. So yeah, definitely wait. Don't spend your tokens on Atuma.
Okay, so Bast might be one of the more interesting ones to talk about. Bast is continually praised as the best 1-drop. Such an insane card. And she is. I will say this card is great, guys. But if I'm going to be honest about Bast, I think unless you're the biggest Mr. Negative fan in the entire world, you can wait till pool 3. I do not think spending the tokens on her is something useful. I just don't play her. And again, maybe it's because Mr. Negative's win rate is around that 50% mark. And so I just am not crazy about it. Does it mean she's not a good card? No, but I would probably veer on the side of waiting. What do you think?
I agree. I do like the card a lot. I think that this one might drop faster than expected as well. Partially because I think I heard somewhere that Negative's win rate is a little lower than people might have expected.
Yeah, it is.
So I do think it's a great Negative card for sure. Yeah, I would wait. I think it's a pool 3 unlock, and as I said, I think it might come down.
But if you did get Deadpool, have fun. It's a very fun combination there. She's a fun card, very unique, and I think there is more potential for the card altogether. We're going to end on Kang before our next subject. Kang, the newest card to drop. It's way too early, Alex, but would you say he's worth the 6,000 tokens?
You know, it's impossible to really say, but I will say that if it's going to be remaining in pool 5 for as long as I believe it will be, then it is worth the experience. I do think that Thanos is definitely a better card. I do think that Galactus is a far more interesting card. I think that Thanos and Galactus are probably your priority kind of unlocks, but if you've got tokens and you want to get, like, you know, the next big bad that you know is always going to be at pool 5, then Kang does represent a good buy.
At this point in time, I think he's third on this list of the 3, and we'll see where he lands. I have a hard time feeling that he will ever jump these 2 in unlocks. I think these 2 you can get in early pool 3. Kang may not be worth that as of now, but we will know a lot more in the weeks to come. This is going to be our new updated token shop tier list. Hopefully you guys like the rankings. It is not left to right. It is randomized, but for the most part, guys, obviously Shuri, Darkhawk, even Null are your better purchases on the 3,000. All right, let's get to the last subject, Alex. On this longer episode of the Snapchat, we've got a sneak peek preview of the March season pass. We had the MODOK season, which felt the most underwhelming. I think the first week was fun, but MODOK is kind of long and forgotten by a lot of players, even though it's still a good deck. And we go to our newest card coming up, guys, and this one is going to be interesting to a lot of you guys. We have Nimrod. Now, Nimrod is a 5/5. When this is destroyed, you can add a copy to each other location. So kind of like a Doctor Doom in a sense, but obviously it's going to have one less copy, if you will. Nimrod is a very interesting character, and I think the Destroy archetype getting love is kind of shocking, I'll be honest, in their order of releasing. Do you know anything about Nimrod in the Marvel world?
I don't. Nimrod's a brand new hero to me, and the card looks pretty cool. I mean, the card art itself, it looks like a jacked Jigglypuff. But one thing I will say is I think the effect is interesting, but I think you bring up a good point. Like, does it really compete with something like Doctor Doom? I mean, it's a 5 cost, but you do have to work with it. You have to synergize with it to get it going. And I mean, do you see synergy with like Arnim Zola, one of your favorite cards in Marvel Snap potentially? I don't know, Cozy.
So obviously I'm like over the moon about this card, just with the ways of the decks that I play. I'm kind of sad that it's going to bring some of them to light a bit more. Nimrod is a, you are correct, it's like a Jigglypuff meets a Machoke or Machamp, just buffed, right? But Nimrod is a villain, and honestly, an OP one at that. I think it turns hero, goes to Bastion. I don't know, it's been a while, but in the X-Men animated series, I just remember this thing being like way too OP. Like, it was just destroying everything. It's essentially, it is a Sentinel from the future, right? That's kind of its lore there. There's a lot more to it. I know Marvel fans might get onto me, but that's it in a nutshell. But if we talk about the card itself, I think that the new Null style deck is going to love this baby. Adding to Null is going to be awesome. And now you guys can see why getting Null is going to be a good counter to this if we seed a ton. If you can cheat it out on the board, especially in like a ramp deck, Alex, I love the Electro, Sandman, Nimrod, or like Electro. And then you can do Arnim Zola after that. Kind of a crazy combo that's going to add a good chunk to the board. We have other things that can already take advantage of that, so it's gonna be interesting here. Obviously no on reveal, no ongoing effect. He'll be interesting. 5 cost is an interesting place. Galactus is gonna be insane with him as well, I believe. So interested to see that. Like, imagine playing him on a left lane, play Galactus right, and then he at least sends 1 extra 5 over to Galactus's lane, which is nice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I was picturing Wong on 4, Nimrod 5, then Arnim Zola 6, and just watching the chaos.
Just watch insanity happen. That's going to be a lot of fun, too. So Nimrod will be our March card, and there's going to be plenty of deck design around it, and we'll see him next week. We also have Master Mold, which is going to be giving your opponent 2 Sentinels. I think that is the most perfect troll card for Disrupt decks. I'm excited to see it. But with how common Devil Dino is, like, oh, it could be a little wild. We have Kitty Pryde. And Kitty Pryde, you can return this to your hand, gain 1 power. So very interesting on a 1/2. Very interesting 1-cost card. Alex, what's your initial impressions on Kitty?
I think it's pretty neat. I'm just kind of trying to figure out if that works with Collector or not, because it technically started in your hand, but it comes back. So I think it would proc Collector, wouldn't it?
I think she's going to be having some weird interactions that's going to make her useful, right? Or just even like tricking your opponent, kind of like Nightcrawler. Like, they think that you kind of filled out somewhere, right? And just pull Kitty Pryde back to your hand. She definitely does not scream 6K unlock. No question about it. That's why I hope they adjust the token shop. But definitely an interesting card that should get a lot of play. Let us know down in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube how you think Kitty Pryde will be useful. How about Negasonic, the Teenage Warhead? When any card is played here, destroy this card and that card. I think this is the ultimate card to play on turn 5, turn 6, predicting Sherry Red Skull, predicting big bombs of other cards. This is a much needed tech card, and really against Shadow King, I think she's going to be perfect.
It is a crazy card. Like, the impact of it is wild. Like, I actually, reading that for the first time, I was like, damn, this card is going to be crazy, because it is like an amazing tech card for like owning a location that you can really play at any time. Playing it on 6 would be hilarious. Like, if you have turn initiative, you could theoretically play it on 6, create the explosion, and then, you know, just basically delete, you know, like, basically, yeah, you're right. It's like a huge counter card. Like, the possibilities seem wild with it. I don't know. I want to get it, and I want to experiment with it. Damn it.
Yeah. So I think again, Null is just gonna have a lot of fun. This is another way to power up Null. This is another card to use only for 3 cost. Finally, we have a cool kind of techish card for 3 cost. I think that makes it very interesting as well. Probably my must buy of the season. And after that, we're going to have the downgrade into MODOK. Come into the season. That's the one that is missing out of this list as well. So we're obviously, this is just a little early impressions, a light touch on the cards. We will be breaking them down much more in obviously next week when they come out. But altogether, it's going to be a good month. And what I'm most excited about is the card acquisition and how they're going to change to make new cards exciting, because this is the first game that is just wild to think it's not. And we're going to talk about that on Alex's side. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode of the Snapchat. Alex, Kang. We're going to have to see what he does for the next week to come. And thanks for joining, buddy.
Anytime, my friend. You know that this is my highlight of the week, and thank you everyone for their support, and we'll see you in the next one.
As always, guys, if you can leave a review on the podcast if you're listening, and if you're watching, leave a like. It helps a ton. Support us for free. And until the next one, guys, happy snapping.